Hey everyone, Tiago here. Today we're going to be taking a look at this. This is going to be a PlayStation 5 controller, Hex Gaming Phantom, and this has Hall effect sticks as well for any drift concerns or anything like that. Now, this is a fairly unique controller. Obviously, this is going to be a pretty highly modified controller. You can buy these on Amazon. It's not exactly like you're ordering through a customization or anything like that. These are kind of like ready to ship models that come with these type of features, and it has some really interesting features that very few controllers on the market, especially for the PlayStation 5, actually have. So let's start by talking about probably the biggest draw, the Hall effect sticks. Now there is also the Phantom controller with the regular sticks. It's going to be a little bit cheaper than this one. This one retails for around like 250 bucks. So I would recommend you get the Hall effects one, even though the traditional potentiometer one is also basically the same thing aside from the potential for drift. The Hall effects one is just just a little bit cooler. You see, you get a little sticker here that's removable. I left it on, but it says Hall effect joystick, so you know exactly what it is. Now, I've bought these in the past. I have another one that's Hall effects, that's blue, that I've had ever since they came out. This one here, the white one, Hex Gaming sent to me to review. So it's a beautiful color. So very, very nice. And you have the triggers and the bumpers, very nice as well. And then you have the grip on the back. Then obviously your back buttons. So the Hall effect sticks, they're very nice in this. They have a really, really nice feel. The thumbsticks themselves, you can adjust. And you'll notice when you use a Hall effect controller for the first time, if you're used to the traditional DualSense, you may have to adjust some of your settings. They can be a little more sensitive and maybe a little more accurate. But after you do, a lot of people report that they can play pretty well, even though traditional potentiometers have a pretty linear type of curve. If you're playing Call of Duty or something like that, these can also be excellent. Sometimes you have to adjust a little bit. But the biggest thing is it's probably going to last a lot longer than a regular controller because of the Hall effect sticks. And in general, they feel really nice. They have a satisfying little push down. So very, very good. That's going to be, basically one of the biggest features of this particular controller, why somebody would want to buy it. It's in pretty much an official PlayStation 5 genuine controller. So it's going to work any way that a PlayStation 5 controller would when you connect it to your console. Now, this one does have like custom face buttons and a custom D-pad in terms of the button kit. It's like a transparent color, white, so that way you can see through. It looks really, really nice. They're not mouse click or tactile or anything. They're using sort of the traditional membrane that you'll have on a PlayStation 5. So if you have a regular PlayStation 5 controller, these feel pretty much like that, but they look cooler, which is pretty cool. Touchpad is also a regular, no mouse click or anything like that. And then instead of a PlayStation logo, you have right in the middle here the little Hex Gaming logo. Now, things get really interesting when you get to the top of the controller. The bumpers on this one are just regular PlayStation 5 bumpers, so that's not where the magic is. But the triggers, listen to that. The triggers, aside from being a cool blue, they're going to be mouse click. They have mouse click triggers in here. So that way, if you're playing Call of Duty, you have some very fast actuation or any FPS game or anything like that. And the question may be, all right, you're playing Call of Duty, right? And maybe you want to play a different game. These mouse clicks are great for that. But then let's say you want to play a racing game where you need to maybe, modulate the gas pedal or the brake pedal. Obviously, that's a problem if you have, I have a different controller here. This is a Scuff Reflex, and this one is only mouse click. So this is only for FPS games. Now, this one, listen to that. Sounds clicky, but then with these little buttons on the back, and you can do this in-game super quick. Look at that. All of a sudden, you have the same, adaptive feedback, haptic feedback system of the PlayStation 5 controller, and you can play racing games. It basically goes back to a stock PlayStation 5 controller. In my opinion, that's extremely impressive. Only a few other controllers really do this. The aim controllers, for example, they also have these type of triggers where you can actually adjust them, and you can do mouse click or you can do the regular adaptive triggers. the AIM Pro controllers, or if you customize one, they have it. They also have now TMR, which, maybe that's one point about Hall effects. It'd be nice to see this with TMR as well. There's not a massive difference, but TMR is going to be a little bit better than Hall effects. Something like the AIM Pro controller does have that, and this one's just going to be regular Hall effects. But anyway, the triggers are very, very impressive, really cool, and they feel great. They have a really nice actuation. Obviously the bumpers are regular bumpers. It would have been nice if they did the bumpers mouse click as well. I know they can because they've done it on, they have the Extreme Rate, which is like one of the companies that are also owned or a partnership with Hex Gaming. I mean, they do all these kits, so I know it's something they can do. It'd be nice to have the mouse click bumpers, but I can understand why, even if you use the Extreme Rate kit, where you do the same setup and you can do a kit. This is obviously built for you already, which I like sometimes too. I love modifying my own controllers, but sometimes you want something that's put together, like perfectly, and you don't have to open it. So even that kit, if you want the mouse click bumpers, you have to kind of combine two kits. So that's just how this works. But overall, that's very impressive. You can use this for any PlayStation game, like Astrobot, if you want the adaptive haptic feedback of the triggers, and then you jump onto Call of Duty, and there you go, you got your mouse click. And then obviously you're going to have your profiles here too. And that's where we're going to talk about the back buttons, because these are actually super unique as well. They're positioned very well, very comfortable. And if you listen to them, if you buy like a different Pro controller, even the AIM controller has these fantastic paddles, but they're tack switches. This one sounds like mouse clicks. It sounds like the top of the controller. Literally the same switch. Listen to that. The bottom and now the top. So they're very satisfying to use, and I think they're very comfortable. They're laid out in a nice positioning, especially with the grip that this has. Very nice textured, like little rubber grip. It just feels super ergonomic. If you already like the PlayStation 5 controller, this will feel even better. So obviously you can switch your profiles. I'll usually map like the bottom one to X and then to circle, the right one, and then maybe square and triangle for the top ones, depending on what game you're playing. So very, very nice to have the back buttons. The idea is you use the back buttons so you can keep your thumbs like free, for aiming or for moving around, especially in an FPS game. But in any game, it could be pretty useful. That way, it's just fun to kind of click the back buttons, maybe more ergonomic. So that's certainly pretty unique. Not many controllers out there with like mouse click back buttons. So very, very nice feature. And then the back's pretty straightforward. And then you have, basically everything else is kind of like a regular PlayStation 5 DualSense controller. Some people consider this like one of the best controllers on the market. And for something you can order like literally like on Amazon, I think, I kind of happen to agree that it certainly is there on the top. Obviously, there's some other controllers that have a lot of interesting things, Battle Beaver, AIM controllers, even Scuff makes some interesting controllers that have different feels and textures and design. So there's a lot out there. But in terms of something you can get, fairly, it's expensive in a sense, but the value you get, if you compare it to other Pro controllers, it's not expensive. It's a pretty good value at $250 because you're getting Hall effects. You're getting these like adaptable adaptive triggers where you can switch them around. You're getting the 4 back buttons. In a lot of custom controller companies, you may only get 2 back buttons. If you want 4, it's going to be much, much more expensive. And you get into Hall effect sticks as well. And it's a very, very nice design. So I happen to agree. This is definitely on the top of PlayStation 5 controllers. A really cool thing is you can, drop it back to a regular PlayStation 5 controller. If you're ever afraid of missing out on the haptic feedback of a game where the PlayStation exclusives, for example, and you didn't want to jump into a Pro controller because even though the clicky triggers are great, you didn't want to miss that. Well, this is the best of both worlds. You can have your cake and eat it too, because then quickly, look how fast you can like move it around. And then you go to mouse click and you don't lose anything at all. So that's super impressive. That's super flexible. And with the Hall effects, that means you can use this one controller for years on your PlayStation, pretty much, because you have Hall effects and you have the triggers. So if a game comes out where you need the adaptive triggers, you just switch it back. The mechanism, the rumbles, as they say, are still in here. So you'll be able to play anything. So that's extremely flexible. And if you think about it, that makes it, a very good value. Very, very nice, high build quality, super awesome design. Like I'm a huge fan of this color, sort of this colorway and the way it's put together. The blue with the white and the gray looks so nice. And they have this in black also. Then they have a blue that's like all blue. They even have like a transparent one. They have a gray one. So they have a couple of options that look really, really cool. So overall, I'm very happy with this. Highly recommend this. Likely will never have a problem with this. And, Hex Gaming stands behind, their products. They're very, very good. And, they just make very high quality stuff. So very impressed with this. Let me know what you guys think down below. And I'll see you guys on the next video.